respected President, Reverend Dr. Lawrence Anthony, and other officials of St. Peter's, and also rectors, directors of the affiliated, aggregated and incorporated institutes. This is not a very good time for all of us to sit and listen to such a talk, but still, as everybody says, this is the time the Catholic Church rests, but then we'll have to be just awake and we will try to do our best. And mine is, I wouldn't call it as a talk, okay, I wouldn't name it as a talk, but rather it would be like sort of presentation of the instructions prescribed by the Dicastery for Culture and Education, okay. And I would also very humbly acknowledge the limitation of my presentation, because this may not be relevant to the second cycle and the third cycle, namely incorporated and aggregated institutes. So Father Benny and Father Terence, you might excuse me. Yeah? Okay. So this is mainly for affiliated, because that's what we are dealing mainly with. That is where I also face a lot of trouble and difficulties, and that is also taking a toll on my being. Father President knows how difficult also it is to play this particular crucial role. Okay. So I purposefully put it Congregation for Catholic Education, because this document was issued in 2020 on 8th December. When it was promulgated, the name of the congregation was Congregation for Catholic Education. Now it is called Dicastery for Culture and Education since 19th March 2022. So, just a sort of ether, how the affiliation came into the ecclesiastical universities or institutes. At first, this particular word affiliation appeared in the history of the church in 1936. Okay, no? 1936. Okay, thank you. 1936 by Sacred Congregation for Seminaries and University Studies. And of course, it did not pick up immediately, it did not gain traction or momentum. It had its own course. Only in 1960s, this particular concept of affiliation began to spread throughout Africa, Asia, and Europe. And later, with his apostolic constitution called Sapientia Christiana of 1979, our Pope John Paul II, Saint John Paul II, aimed to encourage them, affirming it is highly desirable that theological study centers, whether diocesan or religious, be affiliated to a faculty of sacred theology. So it is since 1979 it had its own, the course of gaining momentum in the ecclesiastical discipline. And subsequently the Congregation for Catholic Education, the then Congregation for Catholic Education, had several documents to be followed in order to get this particular affiliation. So Notio Affiliationis Theologicae, the instruction for theological affiliation, then the norms to be observed for carrying out theological affiliation, then the convention for affiliation, agreement for affiliation, then the instruction for philosophical affiliation, then the norms to be observed for carrying out philosophical affiliation, then agreement for affiliation. These were the various documents which we were following till 2014. Unfortunately, this is one of the main flaws that we make even now. Some of us, when we are asking you to renew the statutes or drop the statutes, you take up such documents and again you follow this particular document. These are all outdated since 2014. So therefore they are not in force now. So therefore we are not supposed to follow such methods, such documents. Okay, we will have to follow the document called Veritatis Gaudium, and also there is also another document attached to that Veritatis Gaudium, that is called Norms for Affiliation. And thirdly, this instruction for affiliation promulgated in 2020. So they are the three documents which are currently in force and they have to be followed, observed. So therefore, please, we should never follow, because some of the institutes did that and we had to send because we did not go through. Then finally Rome also came little heavily upon the institute not to follow the outdated norms. So, with the developments within the higher education worldwide, and also in order to promote the proper recognition of qualifications and degrees obtained by clerics, laity, and religious at ecclesiastical academic institutions, the need to update the regulation governing affiliations also emerged in the church, because there were a lot of developments in the ecclesiastical disciplines as well, various kinds of institutions and also new disciplines, and they also wanted to match up our ecclesiastical disciplines and the structures also on par with the disciplines or the structure of the secular world, and therefore Pope Francis thought that we need to update even Sapientia Christiana and the other outdated instructions or those agreements, and thereby he also brought out this particular apostolic constitution called Veritatis Gaudium on 8th December, and also the norms of application 27th December 2017. So since 2017, VG, Veritatis Gaudium, NA, norms of application have been observed. And however, there are also many other observations which were also proposed to the Dicastery even after Veritatis Gaudium. And based on those observations and drawing on the experience the Dicastery had since 2017, within a short span of time of 3 years, in 2020 they brought out this particular instruction for affiliation, which we are going to have a glance at. General norms. So this particular instruction has many articles and many other instructions, but then I have culled out which could be more salient and also which could be more relevant for our procedural applications. So just sort of introduction, canonical basis for an institute's affiliation. The affiliation of an institute is governed by Article 63 of VG and also Article 50 of NA, norms of application, and what is defined and described in this particular instruction which was promulgated in 2018. What does Article 63 say? Affiliation of some institution with a faculty for the purpose of being able to grant baccalaureate is approved by the Congregation for Catholic Education after the conditions established by that same congregation are fulfilled. And we will also see which are those particular conditions which have to be fulfilled when we initiate the process for affiliation. And Article 50 of the norms of application prescribes that affiliated and affiliating. Now ours is St. Peter's is affiliating, and Darshan would be affiliated, and it also prescribes that these both affiliating and affiliated institutes should be in the same country as far as possible. Notion and the specific nature of an affiliation. Affiliation of an institute is its linking. What is affiliation? It's linking to an ecclesiastical faculty with the aim of attaining via the faculty the corresponding academic degree of the first cycle. So we know first cycle is this one, affiliation. Then first and second cycle would be aggregation. Second and third could be incorporation. So this particular word affiliation means it is linking of affiliated and affiliating only for the purpose of granting of the degree baccalaureate. The affiliated institute is open to all who can study. Everybody, ecclesiastic, priests, seminarians, brothers, laity, who may be suitably enrolled in the first cycle of an ecclesiastical faculty as regards the studies they have already completed and their moral conduct. So therefore, in order to enroll themselves, there should be also some basic qualification which they would require. And for this, Veritatis Gaudium states what qualification. So each institute must prescribe what is the basic qualification that would qualify them to be enrolled in the institute for the first cycle. Okay, so the statutes have to prescribe that also. But then they also say they must also take into account the secular universities and all the credentials which are also there in their own region. And of course, moral conduct also comes into picture. It is the affiliating faculty's task and duty to assist and diligently oversee the affiliated institute so that the latest academic life is fully and irregularly conducted. For that to happen more easily, the affiliation is usually to be established within the same country. So therefore, now the Dicastery is very much particular. They don't encourage any institutes to get affiliated outside the country. Some of the institutes now which are prevalent in, which are present in India, they have already initiated the process of affiliation with some of the universities in Rome. Now the Dicastery is rather discouraging, and they say, you don't come to us, you try to get yourself affiliated to the already existing faculties of theology in your own region. So therefore now Dicastery, maybe now onwards, if any institute, newly erected institute, if they want to initiate an affiliation with one of the institutes or one of the faculties in Rome, they would never grant. They would always ask us to get ourselves affiliated within the region itself. The program of studies at the affiliated institute must be harmonized with the norms of the Apostolic Constitution, VG, and attached norms of application and the affiliating faculty's first cycle. So therefore, many of you asked me, what could be the program of studies? Then I also already told you could follow our own statutes. We have our own statutes which is already approved by the Dicastery. So you take our own statutes as the model, and you can also follow that model for prescribing the program of studies. But one or two institutes, they evolved their own program of studies, and finally the Dicastery also asked them to modify, to increase some of the credits for some discipline and to lessen the credits for another discipline. So in order to avoid unnecessary difficulties, it is better to have the faculty, this is a faculty of theology, this faculty's statutes. The condition and nature of affiliated institute studies ought to be properly academic, scientific, just as those of affiliating faculties first cycle. So they are very particular about scientific. I am very sorry because we have also got our own jobs here. So if I am the director, if I have to read all the statutes of all the 9 institutes, it is also quite taxing on my part, no? So therefore, when you send some instructions, and we send, and they are very particular even about a comma, or even article, and you don't put the paragraph symbol, they write us back and they don't approve it. So therefore they say you have to be as scientific as possible. So therefore it is better that you put your heart and soul when you draft your own statutes to be rather scientific, and also get it verified by some other professionally trained canonist or some of the people who are good at scientific mind. And academic conditions of the affiliated institute. The affiliation cannot be granted unless the institute possesses the necessary requirements for attaining the academic degree of the first cycle. In this regard, what are the things that they should possess? Number 1, paragraph 1, one must accurately reflect whether the institute's creation is necessary or at least truly useful, and whether it cannot be substituted for in other ways. Whether it is necessary and truly useful, or whether it can also be substituted. For example, if there is an institute, now they have approved, now they are approving. But then for the president, and I had to talk to that particular official from the Dicastery, and they also once mentioned that every institute must have at least minimum 25 candidates. And if you are not able to have 25 candidates, why don't you look for sending your candidates to another institute which is in the vicinity of your own institute. So in that way also they are saying whether it is really necessary to have your own institute, and they also have asked us not to grant or encourage such affiliation if another institute is very close by. So it should be quite far, it should be they said some 40 kilometers. I don't understand, 40 kilometers. Only then if it is within the radius of 40 kilometers, it is better that you encourage them to come to send the students to your own faculty instead of having their own institute. So that is also there, and they say they are quite lenient at the moment, but they say in the future they may, but in the European context I think this would be more applicable. But for us, yes, exactly, Father. Yes, Father Assisi, we will discuss all those things later. I also absolutely agree with Father Assisi. I told them, in your context, it is different, but in India, our context also is different, but then Vatican. Paragraph 2, the number and quality of the institute's teachers must be such as to be able to satisfy the conditions of the basic level, the first cycle. So we know in the first cycle there should be 7 permanent teachers. We will see later, and also the quality, at least the licentiate or the doctorate. And all teachers must have gained an appropriate doctorate, one that corresponds to the discipline to be taught. So the particular disciplines, 7 disciplines, we will see them later. So each professor should be trained in that particular discipline, 7 disciplines, or at least the licentiate, okay, and must be free from other incompatible duties. And the VG says, Vatican Veritatis Gaudium says, why they should not be also loaded or entrusted with other office, because it will curtail the time, or it will steal away the time, because they have to do a lot of research and produce articles. So that in order to facilitate that particular process, they say we shouldn't have those permanent teachers. Permanent teachers in the institute should not be entrusted with other responsibilities which are incompatible. For example, a parish priest cannot be he has a parish, and he won't have adequate time to do his research or any other academic research or anything. And there should be suitable number of ordinary students. They have not said what number, but orally they said 25 put together. And the institute must have proper academic facilities, including information facilities and technical audio-visual equipment. In the first place, it must have a library with subscriptions to electronic databases that fulfills the academic requirements of the first cycle, and computer-based collection or listing of information. It can include professional peer-reviewed journal articles and so on. So they also envisage such requirements for the first cycle in order to be approved. The weekly hours of lessons, exercises and seminars completed during each student's personal study and work must be sufficient to attain the number of formative credits. So we know in the first cycle, at the end of the third year, we must have completed 180 credits. So that must be equally distributed or spaced out all along the weeks of these 6 semesters. The means of governing the affiliated institute must be determined in the particular statutes approved by the faculty council and then by the Dicastery for Culture and Education, making sure that they do not conflict with what is prescribed in the statutes of the faculty or university. Ours is only a faculty, not the university. So therefore, whatever statutes you send in order to be sent to Rome, it has to be approved by our own faculty council. But usually we rely on you, and we also take for granted that you do. So some of the officials from the Dicastery, we just give a glance and we just send to the Dicastery, and it has to be approved by them. The academic authorities of the faculty, both personal means president or registrar, and collegial, any councils you may have, academic council or institute council, or ipso jure, academic authorities of the affiliated institute, to which one must add the particular authorities who are at minimum the moderator, the director and the institute's council members. So therefore, the academic authorities are, your academic authorities are the president of the affiliating institute, faculty of theology, but like personal. And also the faculty council is, our faculty council is authority for you. But you can have your own minimum, at a minimum like director, because earlier you could call yourself like the dean, but now it is no longer. You can call only a director, and those then also moderator is your own provincial or bishops for that matter, no. So therefore this is also change, a striking change that we'll have to take into account. The duties and offices of all these authorities must be defined in the statutes. The director should be chosen from among the permanent teachers, and it is the director's duty to transmit electronically to the dean of the faculty. So the dean is only in the faculty here in St. Peter's. So therefore, every year, if you go to the web, there is a web, www.educatio.va. If you go there, you can also find your own institute's statistics. Okay, it is there. So in order to upload or update the particular database, you have to send annually, or when there is a significant change with regard to the appointment of the directors or moderators, you will have to immediately send to us. For example, to me, then I can pass on it to the dean. The dean will send the intimation to the Dicastery, because this particular website also is not open every time. It is open, they keep it open only for 3 weeks in a year. They intimate us, this is the time you can upload. So therefore, you keep sending us also any significant changes. If the affiliated institute is joined to a major seminary, this is very important, the statutes, while maintaining due cooperation in everything pertaining to the student's good, must clearly and effectively provide that the academic direction and administration of the institute are correctly distinct from the governance and the administration of the major seminary. So here only they want to be very, very clear. Institute is different and also seminary is different. Both are diametrically opposed, in the sense both are completely different entities. Okay. And of course, we know for the seminary, according to Canon 242, we have ratio fundamentalis, then we have charter for priestly formation, then based on that we have also rule for every seminary. But then the institute has statutes, so you will have to mention how you stand distinctly from each other. Granting of the affiliation and the academic degrees, the affiliation is granted by the decree of Dicastery for Culture and Education. The same decree will have expressly to grant to the affiliated institute canonical public juridic personality. So therefore, some of the institutes recently got your statutes approved, and there in Latin they would have written also. They have written that when we approve the statutes, we also grant you public juridical personality, the character of public juridical personality, which means you are an entity ipso euro by the law itself, and you can act in the name of the church, and that also would make you entitled to acquire, retain, possess and alienate properties and so on independently. Okay, so therefore that public juridical personality character also is now granted after this particular division, like seminary and institute. The affiliation can be granted to those institutes that have shown themselves suitable for such over an appropriate length of time, and after favorable opinions have been obtained both from the ordinary of the place and also from the bishop's conference. So now this is another addition, another requirement. If at all you want to renew or approve your own statutes, you have to also provide for the favorable opinion from the Conference of Catholic Bishops of India. So therefore, you will have to write to the president of the CCBA, and you will have to also he attest, okay, this I also agree that this particular institute can be granted affiliation with such and such faculty. The request must be presented to the Dicastery for Culture and Education by the Chancellor of the affiliating faculty after the Faculty Council has diligently examined and approved. So therefore, when you send the statutes, Faculty Council examines and it approves, and we don't send directly to the Holy See. We send through the Archbishop. He is the Chancellor for us, and he sends to the Nuncio. Then the Nunciature sends to the Holy See. So therefore, when you make mistakes, we are not notified directly. All our dirts are washed in public. For example, when let us say one institute is giving us the statutes, and we are sending through bishop, and the bishop sends through nuncio, and nuncio sends to Holy See. Now the reverse procedure also is same. Holy See to nuncio, and nuncio also will know all that we make, and nunciature to chancellor. Chancellor also sees everything, and it comes to us. So therefore, anything that we make, any blunders or any flaws that we make, it is all known to everybody. So therefore, we'll have to be also very little more meticulous while drafting this particular statute. The academic degree of the first cycle is conferred by the affiliating faculty, whose name must appear on the diploma. So the certificates come from. The degree awarded is the same as that awarded in the affiliating faculty at the completion of the first cycle. The canonical name, baccalaureate, can be accompanied by another expression according to local civil university practice. Why such provision, such an instruction from? Because in some of the countries, their first cycle is also equally valid also in the civil eyes. So for that, in order to match up to their way of calling the, like we call it ecclesiastically baccalaureate, they may say bachelor or something else. So in order to avoid the discrepancy between the ecclesiastical and the civil side, they say you can keep the name baccalaureate, but you can also add other name. This may not be that relevant in the Indian context because our degrees are not really valid in the civil eyes. Any local expression for the baccalaureate which must be identical for all faculties of a given nation, and it also needs approval of the Dicastery for Cultural Education. The issuing of authentic documents for the granting of academic degrees according to established procedures belongs to the affiliating faculty. How we grant it all, it is incumbent upon us. The affiliated institute will take care of issuing any further documents like mark sheet and all those things that also, we can also grant. For example, sometimes mark sheet provided by, like for example in the US, the mark sheet of the affiliated institutes are not valid. Some of the students went to the US and your own mark sheets, I think, they brought it and they said no, it is not valid. So therefore this particular affiliated institutes had to send us the mark sheet, and we had to drop the mark sheet based on your own mark system. Then we had to grant in our name. Only then it becomes valid, especially in the US. Procedure for obtaining or renewing an affiliation: prior examination and approval of the institute to be affiliated. Okay. The proposal to create an affiliated institute must be drawn up by the ordinary or major superior of the place where the institute is located, who must address his request to an ecclesiastical faculty which can assume the academic responsibility for institute in question. The affiliating faculty via its delegate, invigilator, usually during the comprehensive exam we send one to just a delegate like, or commission for affiliation must first verify whether the institute which wants the affiliation satisfies the prescribed academic conditions, including by means of on-site visits. So therefore a commission from the faculty or a delegate from the faculty has to make an on-site visit to satisfy himself of all the conditions prescribed by the this particular dicastery. If the results are favorable, the Chancellor, the Archbishop of Bangalore, having ascertained the requirements foreseen by this instruction are fulfilled, forwards to the Dicastery for Cultural Education along with his own opinion the following. Number one, a dossier on the academic conditions found in the institute to be affiliated and containing the faculty's assessment of the same. We have examined the statutes and what is our assessment, that has to be also sent to them. The statutes of the institute to be affiliated, that also has to be sent. The plan of studies and with the total number of ECTS or comparable formative credits for each discipline, those also must be sent. The curriculum vitae, studiorum et operum, your own studies and all your published works of each institute's teachers, both permanent and non-permanent. The number of students distributed, first year, second year, third year. Any local expression that will accompany the canonical term baccalaureate. And duties of the Dicastery for Culture and Education, usually they don't grant straight away like your statutes are approved. They say it is all approved but ad experimentum gratia. So for 5 years of experimental grace, then when they feel satisfied at the end of the 5th year, they also renew. Again we have to send it, the renewed statutes. They also renew it for another 5 years, and again it is another 5 years. So therefore, once our statutes are approved, it is not perennial. It is only for 5 years. So every 5 years we will have to keep renewing our statutes. Successor renewals will be every 5 years. Okay. If the academic conditions of the institute, particularly as regards the number of students and teachers as well as its academic quality, fail to satisfy the necessary requirements, the affiliation can be suspended or revoked by the Dicastery for Culture and Education. So when something is notified to them, if they come to know, then they can also definitely suspend the approval of the statutes they have already granted, or even they can revoke. For the Dicastery for Culture and Education to be able to grant the affiliation, the competent authorities of the faculty must offer their opinion about each individual candidate to be appointed teacher. So therefore, now let us say darshan comes to us, and we have to, the faculty council of the faculty, St. Peter's, we have to give opinion, votum of each professor who is teaching there. Definitely we have to make on-site visit, but it is quite impossible. So therefore usually we rely on what the director sends us, and definitely so far no problem. So when you send opinion of each professor, and when you send the works, the published works and their own qualification, you will have to be also very faithful and sincere. And president, dean and director, we have to attest, and we have to send to the Holy See. Those who teach disciplines concerning faith and morals must receive, after having made their profession of faith, the canonical mission from the chancellor. This is only for faith and moral. For the affiliation to be renewed, the request must come from the chancellor of the affiliating faculty, accompanied by the doctor. So only our chancellor can make the request to the Holy See, not directly by the director or the moderator of the affiliated institute. According to 63 para 1 of the VG, an institute affiliated to a faculty of theology must fulfill the academic conditions regarding studies that are specified in Article 69 to 76 of VG, and also there are also other norms of applications which I don't want to deal. It is like theology, which are the disciplines they should be part of the program of studies, and all those things we can read by ourselves. And they must also include 3 years of basic level theology, 180 ECTS. And these 7 permanent teachers in the first cycle are mandatory. It cannot be made any exemption. For example, scripture, fundamental or dogmatic theology 2, for moral and spiritual theology, liturgy, canon law, patristic and church history. So there should be 7 professors for all these 7 different disciplines. So therefore, like for example, a professor who holds a doctorate in canon law cannot teach scripture, because they already said in the previous articles that they should be qualified in their own discipline. Besides, the examinations are equivalent test for each discipline. At the end of the first cycle, there is to be comprehensive examination. Okay. The affiliated institute has a special duty of taking care of the scientific theological formation on those preparing for the priesthood and those who are preparing to hold some particular ecclesiastical office, and suitable number of priestesses. So therefore, usually our institutes are meant mainly for seminarians, those who are going to become priests. So therefore, they also would encourage and envisage that the teachers are mostly predominantly the priest teachers, and to that end there must also be special disciplines suitable for seminarians, and they have referred to Ratio Fundamentalis, Institutionis Sacerdotalis, wherein we find these are the particular special disciplines that also must be included: ministerial discipline, ars celebrandi, homiletic, specific course, and all those things. Moreover, there should be also one pastoral year. We know the pastoral year, which is also we are also supposed to implement since 2017. But then you can make your own plan of studies, program for this particular ministerial year, and you can also grant the certificate, and diploma is granted. And the last one is 8th September. Any changes, now you send your own statutes to us, and we send to the Vatican, and later on if you want to change anything, any article on that particular statutes, you will have to get also you will have to get the approval of the Dicastery, and only the Dicastery for Culture and Education. If at all you want to make some get some dispensation from the prescriptions of the statutes, you will have to also get the dispensation only from the Dicastery. So these are some of the things that I thought that I would share with you. Maybe we can discuss if need be. Thank you.